Hello Aqua friends, today I am doing some smoky mountains for you. I have two different papers. I have Arches and I have the Honolulu collection. I'm not going to tell you which one is which, and even at this point I really never paid attention and didn't keep track of which is which because they look very similar. So I outlined my mountains, free sketched these, and I'm just picking up some of that graphite a little bit. So to get a smoky effect, the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to work from right to left since I'm left-handed, and starting with the background, I am doing a monochromatic landscape. The only thing I've used is sepia. So I'm going to include the reference photo, and I do hope you guys paint along. This is part of the Fast and Fun Friday series. This indeed would only take about 10 minutes. That's not including drying time, but it really doesn't take long to make this cute painting. Being that I'm doing two paintings at once, I think I spent about 20 minutes on this, including not the drying time. And happy Halloween to everybody. I hope you guys have a great weekend. If you have kids, I hope they have a fun and safe time. So as I did with the first painting, I'm wetting the background with clean water and then dropping in my neutral tint. So that is pretty much it. I'm just trying to get a nice cohesive background. And it dries lighter, of course, so it's like this perfect first smoky background area. Now I'm re-wetting some of the sky area because there are mountains and areas that you could sort of see. And so to have that blurry type of painting, we have to do it wet on wet, okay? So you notice the edges are nice and soft and fuzzy. That's what we're looking for. I'm going to take water and I'm going to blur out the bottom so that it fades. You have this like gradation of color that fades down. And it's very, very soft, as you can see. So like that's like the perfect in the fog background layer. Okay, and as you see in the reference photo, there are parts of the mountain that are in focus where there are hard edges, but there's also areas where there's soft edges, and I just love that effect. So again, wetting the area, dropping in the neutral tint, and then fading out the color towards the bottom. Now the next layer of mountains are clearer. You can actually see they have crisper lines. So now I'm working wet on dry. And I'm varying my color as well. Okay, this is called tonal value, where we're changing the tone of the color in darker areas and lighter areas. Now with clean water, all I did was wet underneath of the paint that I already put there so that you have it going into a very soft transition. And it looks like, you know, there's a layer of smoke right underneath that ridge. That's how you get that effect. So some parts of the mountain I'm darkening up, getting a bit of contrast. I did the same thing on the other side. Now we're moving on to the next layer. So again, I've wet an area, so it's going to be some hard edges and some soft edges. And the more we move to the foreground, the darker the values change and the darker the mountain becomes. So working that wet on dry initially, putting in your hard edges and coming by with a very wet brush to soften the bottom so it looks like fog. Okay, and there are some areas of the mountain that are peeking through the fog, and so I'm adding in some more neutral tint while it's wet. You have that really nice, soft, foggy look. This is a great beginner's project because it's like super simple to do. And you know, you just get to have fun with it and practice your hard and soft edges. And so far, the only thing I've noticed about the difference in the papers, the texture is really about the same. They're both 140-pound paper. The one on the right is actually a lighter watercolor paper. It's more white than the left-hand piece of paper. But as far as painting on them, they're quite similar. I'm thinking that the pigment actually is a little bit brighter on the left-hand side one, I noticed. Trying to use the exact same amount of pigment and doing it the same, but it does tend to be go on a little bit of a deeper color on the left-hand side one. So I'm trying to get them to match up as best as I can. Like I said, I just free-handed these, so no two paintings will ever be the same no matter how hard you try. I'm going a lot bolder with my foreground mountain peak there with my color. Okay, I'm using more probably of a milk consistency, and I'm pulling that color down and then adding more water to keep pulling that down and softening the bottom. So I'm just referring to my reference photo and getting in those dark areas. And when you're painting, you're always making judgment calls. So after having the foreground mountains looking pretty dark, I went back and added a little bit more pigment to the back. So I'm going back over a few areas to darken it up to get the tonal values correct. So I'm lifting up paint there while it's still wet, just to get a nice smooth transition. Now it looks really dark, but it does dry a lot lighter. Now I wanted to see how the paper holds up to lifting some paint while that's dry, since I'm testing these two papers and comparing them. So I'm just choosing an area in the background there to try to lighten up. So they don't lift easily, both of them really don't lift that easily. I did feel that I had to work at both of them to lift paint, and the paint I'm using is a very kind of staining color as well, so I have to take that into consideration. But I'm just working on both sides and softening up some of those peaks just to see, you know, if the paper's getting marred, if, you know, I'm actually pulling up some of the cotton off of the paper. And I was given a good enough scrub, and examining them close up once it dried, they both held up pretty well to the scrubbing. I didn't feel that one paper was more damaged than the other, which really kind of surprised me because I've worked on the collection series before, and I kind of thought that it didn't hold up as well to the arches, but I proved myself wrong in this side-by-side comparison. This is washi tape that I use to tack down my paintings, and for both paper the tape removed very easily and didn't hurt the paper at all. So now for the reveal, because I couldn't remember. That was the Honolulu, and that one was the arches. So let me know in the comments below which painting you like better, and if you have any thoughts, if you've used these two different watercolor papers before. Thanks a lot for joining me today, and I will see you guys next week.